makes us feel beautiful. It side by side performs her duty by making our everyday hopeful. Good afternoon, everyone present over here. With a great pleasure, I, Ms. Komal Gandle, feel privileged to extend my warm welcome on behalf of Government College of Engineering, Aurangabad, to all present over here for the session on design thinking and critical thinking under Institute Innovation Council. The Honorable Principal Sir, Dr. U.J. Kaharekar Sir, today's resource person, Professor Ismail Akbani, Symbiosis Pune, Dr. Varshavatna Parkhi Ma'am, President IIC, all compassionate teachers and beloved students. Dear student, the Ministry of Education, Government of India has established MOE, Innovation Cell, that is MIC, to systematically forecast the culture of innovation amongst the all higher education institute. The primary mandate of MIC is to encourage, inspire, and nurture the young student by supporting them to work with new ideas and transform them into prototype. MIC has encouraging the creation of Institute Innovation Council across selected higher education institute. A network of these IIC will establish to promote the innovation in institution through infinite modes, leading to an innovation promotion ecosystem in campus. It has become a regular aspect and part of Government College of Engineering to organize various sessions under IIC. Today's session is design thinking and critical thinking, and we have a resource person, Professor Mr. Ismail Akbani. He is the head innovation and linkage, Symbiosis Center of International Education, Entrepreneurship Promotion and Innovation Cell SIT, Mentor of Change, Atal Innovation Mission, Government of India, President, Institution Innovation Council SIT. He is a staunch advocate of application of design-inspired strategies in all walks of life. He is an alumni of VNIT Nagpur and EDII Allahabad and has also been a visiting research fellow in strategy and innovation at IIT Delhi. At SCEI, he heads the innovation capacity building initiative and ecosystem linkage, being passionate about envisioning the spirit of entrepreneurship and innovation. He has traveled across the country and trained, mentored people of various organizations, including IIT Bombay, S-Bank, Frasers, Tata Motors, IIT Kharagpur, Gwalior Startup Network, PIT Vellore, then Power Chamber of Commerce, IIT Goa, and many other institutes. Now I request Professor Ismail Akbani sir to start the session. Please, sir. Please, sir.
Good afternoon. Am I clearly audible, visible? I think there is some issue with my, I don't know, I'm getting constantly some noise disturbance over here.
Sir, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Okay, am I clear now?
Yes, sir.
Thank you so much. Since I don't know, in between getting some kind of a disturbing background noise constantly, but that's fine. As long as I'm audible clearly, I think we can work around that. So, okay, how many people do we have? 160 almost participants. So that's interesting. Do the participants have access to the chat? Do all of them access to chat?
Yes, sir. All are in a position to access the chat.
Okay. Okay, cool. So then let's start with that only, right? Yes, I saw somebody replying to chat box. Interesting. So let me see how many of you are actually awake. Let me type awake in the chat box. Let's see. Because I, for sure, am not 100% awake, to be honest. I just had my lunch and I was actually in a meeting, and in the meeting, as you guys do, a lot of you do, your camera is off, you're attending the class, and you're on PUBG on your phone. The same is with us. So I was attending a meeting on one side and I was having my lunch, and I'm just kind of halfway through England right now. Let me see how many of you are totally awake in the chat box. Let's see. There's only one yes in the chat box so far. Because I know,
Yes.
Tuesday afternoon, 3 p.m. talk, that too online, and because the ISC people have no other work, these people are these ISC and ESL people every morning they wake up and they're like, how do I make the life of my students miserable? How do I create one more event and bring them and then make them torture for 2 years, 2 more hours, online? So these people have no other work, right? At the end of the year, when there's promotion, the principal calls the people and says, okay, you want promotion, tell me how many times did you torture the students? And then sir, we did 20 webinars. That's the kind of people we have around. But I also have ISCR and ISC at my place. So just on lighter note, name plus student, but my and the other faculty members and a student from here on all the events. Yes, I was just waiting to have some more chats. Yes, so like kind of at least 20, 30 people are awake over here, right? Out of 160, so that's how much, almost 12%, 13%. But that's good to see. At least there are some people who are awake over here. And I know it's very difficult for you guys, for not for you. In fact, when we go to attend faculty development programs, that's the reason I normally say that we as teachers should go and attend a lot of training programs, because when we go and attend those programs, we realize how difficult it is to be sitting constantly on one side of either of the screen or even if it's offline, especially in post-lunch sessions, and just to listen to somebody. That too, if the topic is not of very interest to us, right? And of course, you take any topic on the planet, right? Not everybody is going to be interested in it, right? So the topic might be good, the topic might be useful, the topic might be interesting, but then again, we have our own personal preferences, right? We have our own personal choices, have our own life and career goals, we have our own visions, and accordingly, if something fits into that personal career plan, that personal goal system, then we are like, okay, fine, this is something I want to attend. But then a lot of time, even if the topic is very important, it's very relevant, if it doesn't fit with our personal journey, then I understand it's difficult to digest. And I'm sure out of 150 plus people over here, there would be some people who would be fascinated, who would be excited to know more about the topic. There will be some people who would be, hey, let's see. के अंदर एक और अत्याचारी इवेंट कॉलेज में ऑर्गेनाइज किया है तो देखते हैं इतने सालों से पीड़ित हो रहे एक और बार पीड़ा सह लेते हैं right? And some of you would be like, just for the sake of it, ठीक है मैं तो ब्लॉगिंग करेगा टाइम पास करेगा I'm still I know some of you are still to get out of the hangover of 14th February. So some of you are still in those memories. Some of some of you probably wanted to see some other face on your mobile phone, but unfortunately you have to see this face for the next 2 hours. I totally understand. And so if at any point of time, if you guys feel कि सर बहुत हो गया आज के लिए, so while I'm supposed to be speaking for 2 hours, right, till 5 p.m. and I'm going to my club for 45 minutes, and and I've got a lot of content, and of course there are a lot of points that I want to share. But at any point, even if it's just 10 minutes from now, at 3:30, 3:45, if you feel कि सर enough for today, बहुत हो गया, अब नहीं जा रहा है. Somebody can just unmute and let me know. We'll stop doing that. And I'm since I'm getting paid and since I have to speak for 2 hours, so we'll talk about something else. We'll discuss that new movie that has released. Or we'll talk about politics. We'll talk about sports, whatever you guys want. As long as it's a discussion. Are you guys okay with that? Let me know in the chat box. Yes or yes? Or do you guys want me to speak for 2 hours? Whatever I have planned without considering if it is interesting or not, without taking a break, without giving a damn about how you guys are feeling. Just my direct question, I can finish nothing. So you want me to do that? So, right? Let me know in the chat. So if I get people saying, we are okay, we're cool with the way you said, then I'll go that way. If I don't get enough response in the chat box, I would assume that you guys just want me to get it done. Sir, एक बार का ये टॉर्चर खत्म करो आप, क्या ये बार बार ये लोग फैकल्टी इस बार नहीं आप पढ़ाओगे तो अगली बार कोई और आएगा फिर टॉपिक लेके, इससे बेटर आ ही गए हो तो एक ही बार में किस्सा खत्म करो. The topic we're going to talk about today, I'm waiting for some responses in the chat box, by the way. And from the looks of me, you'd see I'm kind of not in a very formal mood right now. I'm rarely in a formal mood, actually. Even in my classes, I'm not very formal. But I'm less formal than I'm normally, even in the guest talks, because I know. And by the way, I don't know how many of you know, but 1 week got concluded yesterday, 14th February, 1 week khatam ho gaya, but aaj se the new week has started. And if you don't know, this is enemy week. Right? If you go to Google, they're celebrating enemy week from starting today. And they also call it anti-Valentine's Day week. Sorry. Right? And today is a very special day. It's slap day. If there's somebody you want to take revenge on and you needed an excuse, here you got it, right? But what we're going to talk about today, again, coming back, is a very interesting topic, something that's very close to my heart, something I believe that each one of us should be, not just knowing and understanding, but practicing every box of life. That was a part of my introduction as well, right? Because it's something that's not only applicable for innovation, for startups, for engineers, for managers, or designers. It's applicable to all of us in our day-to-day life, and we'll see that how we can impact. That topic is design thinking. And then the other topic that we're going to talk about is critical thinking, of course. And both of them have certain things in common, certain things opposed at 180 degrees, but they go hand in hand, right? And both of them play complementary roles. So with that said, let's just go back into my presentation quickly. I just take you through it, and then of course we have our other discussions. So I hope that the presentation, you guys can see the presentation. If somebody can confirm. Okay. So now this is probably, and normally I'm very used to keeping the sessions very interactive and normally keep on asking a lot of questions. But then again, I have pulse of the audience, right? If I'm getting enough good responses, that's fine. Otherwise, I'll forget that there is any audience here. I will imagine that ये कोई course का recording हो रहा है, where I got a camera in front of me and I just have to speak, and this is a video course that I'm making that somebody will watch later. Forget that there is any live audience. So as long as you keep responding, that's fine. Otherwise, I'll go to that mode. So this is a slide where normally usually ask this question. You have 4 things on the screen. If you see, left side is that very nice chair usually used in wedding ceremonies over here. And then on the top right, you see it's a curriculum, a syllabus of certain subject. Bottom right is a timetable of a certain class, and then in the middle is a screenshot of the website of the incubation center that I come from. What is one common thing amongst all 4 of this? Does anybody have any guess? What do you think is one word common amongst all 4 of these? Just a random guess. Am I audible, by the way? I don't know. Sometimes when people stop responding, in this online world, you start doubting your network connectivity, your earphones, and your audio jack and everything else.
Sir, you are audible, but not so clear. Maybe the internet issue or maybe.
I don't know. Even there's some constant noise at on my side also.
Yeah, the coordinator, Zoha, can you just mute on entry? Every time the student is joining, there is some disturbance created. Some settings are there in the menu of WebEx. Please do that. Otherwise, we are not in the position to listen to the speaker. Yes, sir, please. Yeah, sir, please continue.
Yeah. Okay, cool. So that's the challenge with technology. Anyway, it's interesting. Things happen when you're doing new things. And almost 2 years into this pandemic, into this online world, but we're still trying to accommodate to technology. right? So we used to feel that we as human beings have reached pinnacles of technology, but now we realize that after 2 years, there's so much that we need to learn. Everywhere it's the same situation. So one word. I don't know what's the issue, but anyways, if as long as I'm reasonably clearly audible, it's fine. Otherwise, you can let me know. Maybe I'll try to log off and log in again. So that one word that I was talking about is common is design, right? And that's the scope of design in the context of discussion. All of this, your timetable is designed, your curriculum is designed, a website is designed, your clothes are designed, the frame that I have behind is designed. The coffee mug that I'm having on my table right now, this is design. The tools that I'm using are design. But then design is not only about physical products. Now, talk about design, what comes to our minds is physical products. Talk about buildings being designed, products, cars, iPhones, clothes being designed, gadgets being designed. Design is much more than that. Design, in the context of design thinking, is a way of solving problems. So when your faculty is coming to the class to teach, the entire lecture session plan is designed. This entire session that I'm delivering, the entire PowerPoint is designed. It's not just the PowerPoint as a part of the design. Everything that I'm going to talk, every example that I have in my mind, how I'm going to start, where I'm going to take you, where I'm going to take a pause, how I'm going to shift from design part to the critical thinking part, everything is designed. That's the context we're talking about when we talk about design thinking. It's not just design of physical products. Where, where do we use design thinking? And again, I'm sure you might have had a lot of sessions on design thinking prior to me in the past couple of years because thanks to this ISC events and we have put design thinking as a couple of events over there. So every college has had at least a couple of sessions on design thinking. Of course, all of them are experts. So I'm sure that some of you who attended those early sessions would already have had some basic understanding about design thinking, some session or the other. And so I don't want to go in that conventional way, but rather I would like to share certain different aspects because being a master practitioner of design thinking, there's certain angles of design thinking that I look at, the perspectives from which I look at design thinking is a bit different from what a conventional, normal trainer or speaker would look at. The most important, as I said, is design thinking is a way of solving problems, but not every problems are suitable to be solved in design thinking. That's very important because when a lot of times I do these workshops, we do a 3 days, 2 days, 3 days boot camp on design thinking, 15 hours of training, and then at the end there is a project on design thinking. And when the students come up, the participants, some of them are corporate employees, they come up and when they submit the project to me, I'm like, why on earth would you apply design thinking to this problem? And they're like, sir, I thought the design thinking we knew and this was a problem. But I said this problem could have been solved without design thinking. So that's one thing I want to talk about, that not every problem needs to be solved using design thinking. Yes, I will give you a simple example. If let's say, of course we don't have it, but let's say if somebody has a sword in your house, घर में अगर तलवार रखी है, you got a sword, you got a permit for that, right? And it's for some specific reason. Just because I got a sword in my house, I don't start using the sword to cut onions and potatoes and tomatoes in the kitchen. The sword can do that, but of course you can cut the vegetables. But just because I got the sword, I won't start using the sword for everything to put butter on my bread and to cut fruits and things like that. I'll use a knife for that, right? Because जो काम knife से हो सकता है, something that could be done by a knife, why would I unnecessarily go and use a sword for that? Same way, just because you have learned design thinking, just because you know design thinking, doesn't mean that every small problem, every problem that you see, you start applying design thinking. Design thinking is for wicked problems, problems that cannot be solved by a lot of other techniques, right? And that is one thing we need to understand. Usually, that people skip when they talk about design thinking, right? So what are wicked problems? So wicked problem actually is a book called Wicked Problems for Solving, right? And that's where the entire concept of wicked problems came into picture. And I'm kind of I work on my PhD is into social innovation, so we do deal with wicked problems a lot. So wicked problems, there are two kinds of problems. Again, I don't know how many if you have ever heard this, but there are two kinds of problems. One are systematic problems, or I also call what you can say tame problems. Tame problems, the problems you could tame. You call पाल सकते हैं, literal translation करें right? They are algorithmic problems. So in that case, you know the problem, what exactly the problem is, and there's an algorithmic process. There's a step-by-step process to solve it. For example, suddenly, I got the specs a few months ago, in fact, January only I got the specs. suddenly in the month of October, November, I started realizing that no, there's a problem with my eyes. Where I can read and watch and do things in, but distant vision I started seeing that when I was sitting in conference rooms and meetings, I was unable to see the PowerPoint presentations being made very clearly. I could read them, but it was all blurry. And smaller fonts I could not. That's the problem, right? That no, I got a problem, and then I realized that there's some issue with my eyes. So I know exactly what's the issue. If I'm unable to read it, of course, I got some numbers, certain numbers, right? There's some issue with my eyeballs and certain things, and that because of that, there is a problem, vision problem about it, right? That most of us have. So I knew what the problem was. I had, and there was an algorithmic procedure. I knew what has to be done. The first thing I need to go to eye doctor, right? Go get an appointment, get my eyes checked, right? Step number one. In fact, when I go, step number one is he's going to put some certain eye drops. I'm going to sit over there in the waiting room. Then I'll go inside and he'll put in some of those his say some binoculars, some stuff, some equipment, make me look at those lenses, and probably they're going to certain letters out there at some distance, different sizes. It's going to make me read those letters, right? And then I'll have to read, and then of course some of them I will be able to, some of them I will not be. And it's going to put a dummy frame over here, and it's going to put different specs of different lenses of different numbers, right? And it just keeps asking me, okay, which one is easy to read, which lens, and then accordingly, what is good to identify what's exact number, is it 0.25, is it 0.5, 0.75, whatever it is. And then for both the eyes, is it distant vision, is it near vision issue? I'm going to write them down, and then the next step is, of course, I take that prescription, go to optician, I get a specs ready, right? I choose a frame the way I like it, I get those specs, and then I wear it and I come to work. Now, if you see, it's a problem. That was a problem, and I solved it in some way, of course, not completely. But I solved it. I solved the problem, and there was a systematic step-by-step process available to me. I did not have to panic. Oh my God, what happened? My eyes now. I don't know what exactly is it. So that's a tame algorithm problem. But a lot of problems that we deal, especially in social context, are wicked problems. The wicked problems, have four characteristics, basically, right? Four reasons, and there are 10 characteristics actually. One is there is incomplete or contradictory knowledge about the problem. So when this entire COVID-19 pandemic broke, it was a wicked problem, right? Because we did not have complete knowledge about that virus initially. Right? We did not exactly know where did everybody was blaming, okay, Wuhan and China and all, but then they were saying something else. So exact origins, exact how did that virus came into existence? Was it created in a lab? Was it because of some big some bad and some bad to big and through that to human beings? I don't know. Right? We did not have complete knowledge, and sometimes knowledge is contradictory also, right? Some lab is some researcher in a country is saying this, and then other researcher in the country is saying totally opposite to that. And then the large number of people and opinions involved, right? And when there are so many people and opinions involved, it becomes difficult to come to one conclusion. Right? As was the case with COVID, Russia has its own theory, China कुछ और बोल रहा है, वैसे अपना कुछ और बोल रहा है, right? And the third point is that a wicked problem has. Okay, did my screen just go off? So the third is that there's a large economic burden because of that problem usually, right? And all these problems are very, very strongly interconnected. So for example, when we talk about the problem of poverty, that's a wicked problem. When we talk about problem of education in developing countries, school education, it's a wicked problem. You talk about problem of health and sanitation and hygiene and clean toilets and clean drinking water, and pollution control and controlling crime amongst teenagers. All these are wicked problems. Right? They are not because there is no systematic way. I mean, there's no formula. One step by step, you have to remove poverty. These are the 10 steps. You do that, and poverty will go away. Trust me, if that was the case, almost every government in every country would have tried it. You want to bring in health and hygiene in the villages? These are the 10 steps. No. Now you would ask, sir, I said, so it's not that difficult. We can do that, right? We'll come to that in a while. Why it's so, right? So those are the wicked the problems that we were talking about. So these are characteristics of a wicked problem, and wicked problems are what? design thinking is more suitable for. So what are the characteristics, right? First is the wicked problems don't have a clearly defined boundary. When I say poverty in India, what's the boundary? I mean, who is a poor? Question वहां से शुरू होता है. If I had to remove poverty, I say I'm going to do something about poverty. Question is, what's poverty, right? And who is a poor person? Now, do I look at a beggar on the street and say he's a poor person, and then I find out that he owns a 2 BHK flat somewhere in Pune, right? And then again, do I say somebody who earns 200 rupees, up to 200 rupees per day is poor, or up to 500 rupees poor? How do I define it? How can I say कि 200 रुपए के अंदर आपको जो खाना मिलता है उसके उतने में खाने के अगर उससे ज्यादा आपको मिल रहा है तो you are not poor. It's very complex, right? Because it depends on city to city. 200 rupees might be enough in a small village, may not be enough in Pune or in a city like Aurangabad, right? Then again, how many people are there? So that boundary itself is not clear, right? Second is wicked problems don't have a point when they are solved. A wicked problem is rarely if ever solved. You just improve, you just make the condition better. So, for example, powers like problems like poverty and education and crime. You think crime is ever going to be eradicated from the face of this earth? 100%? Never. Till the end of humanity, till the end of this planet, till the end of the solar system, a bit of crime is going to be there. Unless you come with a chip or something they're talking about that Elon Musk a Neuralink chip, it will go in your brain and you can make people do the way they want. But then again, people who are controlling those chips will commit crimes, right? If we cannot commit them, we will be controlled by the chips. But at least there will be somebody who will be controlling the chips. And what if that person goes wrong, right? Wicked problems always have more than one explanation. So you cannot ask why is India poor? There's no one reason. Right? While people in the political discourses might want to put a reason on some opposition party or the previous government, या 50 साल में नहीं किया, 4 साल में नहीं किया, 2 साल में नहीं किया, whatever things, right? इसकी वजह से, उसकी वजह से, ये family, ये party, वो party, because that's their job in politics. So they always try to blame it. बस ये एक ही reason था, एक ही person था, एक ही factor था, एक ही party थी, एक ही government थी, whatever. That is responsible for everything wrong. But wicked problem usually, if you look at you cannot pinpoint one thing that one reason why India there is poverty. There are hundreds of reasons. Economic growth नहीं है, corruption है, people are not literate, then literate and probably there are certain you have some caste systems, so because of that, and then you have certain sections that don't believe in education, their education costly है, they don't have money. So there are so many reasons why they are poor. Why don't you have healthy, clean and safe drinking water in the country? Again, there's not one single reason that you can give. Because if it's not one reason, it would have been easy to remove that, right? So any wicked problem you pick up, you have multiple reasons, multiple causes, right? And the reason I'm talking about this more, because when you go ahead try creating your startups, your business, your innovations, I want you guys to focus more on the social aspect also, right? And everybody talks about design thinking in the commercial sense. I wanted to bring it in a social sense over here. So look at it, and the reason is when you look at the problem, don't get carried away. Poverty है तो मैं एक I will pick up. That's the mistake people do. That you identify one reason. The people who come up with startups and say, no, sir, people are poor in India because they do not have access to internet. So we will provide internet and poverty will go. Sorry, not happening. Yes, you can say that we provide internet and we will contribute to the removal of poverty to some percentage. Maybe 10%, 20% poverty हम कर पाएंगे by providing internet services. Maybe we will increase the income level. That's okay. But if you come and claim that one thing I'll do that will remove the entire poverty, if any startup, any entrepreneur, any businessman, any politician, any minister comes and says, I will do this one thing and I'll remove this, or any party's manifesto talks about it, right? Not going to work. Next is wicked problems solution attempts to change the problem definition. What this means is that as you start solving a wicked problem, the problem definition itself starts changing. And because we have problems constantly, आपने बोला तो no, we don't have healthy water over here. So what do? So a simple example. I was doing this case study for my PhD. There's a town in MP near Indore. I forget the name of the town. They said this town does not have hygienic, sanitation and toilets. So under some Swachh Bharat Abhiyan and all, they give grants to the village कि आप toilets बनाओ. Good toilets, common toilets, and they actually sent people, and they actually got the toilets built, right? And the toilets were built. Then after a couple of years, when the local authorities went for a survey out there, they found out that nobody, these people are still going out for toilet in open, in the fields, in the farms, or doing it in the backyard. They're not using those toilets. And you know what those toilets were being used for? toilets were being used as storage rooms for the fodder of animals. Right? The cattle ka jo ghas poos, jo cattle ka jo khana pina hai, ghas and all those things, that they were storing in those toilets. They were using the toilet storage rooms. I mean, they tried to figure out why this happened. Right? They realized, okay, not no, if you have to use that toilet or because of septic tank and all, you need so much of water. And that village had such acute scarcity of water, they had to travel kilometers to just get one pot of drinking water. The villages are like, boss, यहाँ पीने के लिए पानी नहीं है. You expect us to spend 30, 40 liters, 50 liters, or hundreds of liters per person per day of water in those toilets. कहाँ से लाएंगे? So we are okay with जो हमारा छोटा मोटा एक लोटा लेके हम जाते हैं, हमारा काम हो जाता है. No, we are managing somewhere because we don't have water. Sometimes what happens now, the problem diffusion change, right? You आप चले थे वहाँ पे टॉयलेट बनाने के लिए, लेकिन पता चला कि बस प्रॉब्लम टॉयलेट का तो नहीं, प्रॉब्लम तो पहले पानी का है. And how do we create a toilet that is very efficient with water? Cities के अंदर तो ठीक है, we don't mind. Hundreds of liters of water goes to our drainage every day through toilets. We have that luxury. Those people in some villages, they don't have that luxury, right? The problem also changes. There are a lot of other things are already on the slide. I'm not going to discuss all of them. Just major points I just mentioned over here, right? And there's no scientific approach to wicked problem solving. As I said, there's no algorithm, there's no program that can solve. You could come up with, you could try, but there's no. And second thing is, they don't have solution template. What that means is that if you solve the short problem of water scarcity in a small village outside Pune, right? The systems, the method, the processes that you adopted cannot be as it is copy pasted to somewhere outside Nagpur or Aurangabad or Hyderabad or Chennai. As it is happening, because something that works in a village outside Pune will not work in some other village somewhere else because they're all different, even if it is related to water. That's why we need. That's why wicked problems are unique. The problem of poverty of India is unique than the power problem as compared to the problem of poverty of Africa. Right? So if there's something that works out in Africa to remove poverty, right? As it is copy-paste problem, solution may not work in India. Unfortunately, that is one thing we need to do. No, कोई तो minister होता है, कोई तो scientist होता है, कोई तो businessman होता है. In some areas, some regions, some state, they do something else. And then, oh, gee, I did this development here, I did this, solve this problem over here. And so now these people expect that the same formula I'll apply in other state, other district, other business, other society, locality, and I'll succeed and people start supporting on that. Not always. So let's now, having talked about this, so what are the wicked problems with design thinking? What is design thinking? Simply put, again, multiple definitions are available on the internet if you go. This is one of my favorite definitions. It says it's a cognitive, strategic, and practical process. Cognitive refers to thinking. Right? Cognition is all about thinking. So it has to do something about the thought process. That's the word. That is why it is called design thinking. Right? It's a strategic process. Right? It's not a tactical process. There's a difference between strategy and tactics. Somebody from a management perspective will teach you if ever you have a session on business models, what is the difference between strategy and tactics. I don't want to do it right now. Strategy is like how you're going to win the war, and tactics is whether you're going to the revolver or rifle. Just to give again very crude example, but just to help you understand. So design thinking is a strategic one thing. It's not a tactical. It's a practical process that you can actually apply. It's concerned with solving complex or wicked problems we already talked about in a highly human-centered way. Ultimately, at the end of the day, solving problems are solving them for human beings. Right? So if those human beings are not at the center of your problem-solving process, then it's of no use. So before, again, there are a couple of myths around design thinking I want to just quickly share. Right? So some misconception, right, that design thinking is a magical shortcut to innovation. It is not. There is no shortcut to innovation, right? There are people who sell design thinking workshops and courses with that because that's business for them. But trust me, there's no shortcut to innovation. This process will help you, but it's not like a design thinking strictly as innovator. It's design thinking is only for product designers. No, that's again wrong. It's for everyone. You could be creating a service. You could be a social worker. You could be teacher, student. Even you could be a mother. Right? Design thinking does not have a universally applicable recipe. It's just a broad set of tools and techniques, but for every problem you have to create your own strategy. It does not guarantee successful innovations. Right? It some people again I've seen opportunity. I don't know, a lot of people talk about design thinking, and they say design thinking is empathy. While empathy is the first, one of the most important, most critical step in design thinking starts with empathy. But design thinking is not just empathy. Empathy is just a part of design thinking. I don't know why people somehow the moment you talk design thinking, people are like, oh, empathy. No, it's not like that. Right? It's just like so. It's just like just like India is not only about culture and tradition, right? We also have sophisticated technology. We have अभी वो इसरो का कुछ launch भी हुआ. It's like that. So same way, empathy is a part of design thinking, but it's not everything. There's something about sticky notes. There's something about frameworks. All these things are myths. Again, not true. Right? There are a lot of things people say that it's a temporary thing. A lot of people who don't understand it again come back and say that it's just a passing fad because everybody's talking about design thinking. It does not work. Right? There are examples I can give that people are actually applied and it works. Right? And most importantly, that you need to be certified person to practice that because while certification, of course, from a good place helps you boost your career and all. You can practice design thinking even without being certified. So I got my master practitioner certification 2 years ago. I've been training people to design thinking for 6 years. Right? So I was actually not just practicing, but also teaching people how to practice design thinking even before I got my certification. That's possible. Right? And of course, yes, the last myth is that you think that I am a design thinking expert. Sorry, I'm not. Because that's a broad field. Everybody is a student. And from the day you start to the day you end. So it's always a work in progress. Okay, a couple of slides I'm going to skip. So just to give you an idea, what exactly how the design process works. So this actually there's a sound here, but I'm not sharing the sound. So this is Vidisha, one of my students, right? And it's a real name. Vidisha is a real name of one of my students. She graduated now. She's working with that. It's 7th day. Vidisha attends all the sessions like this, and then after she goes and says, "No, I need to start a business. I want to start a business. I'll create a product solution. I'll think of idea because that's another myth. People are like, all that you need is a good idea to start a business. So she's I need an idea, I need an idea. She's constantly thinking. And then suddenly she realizes, I like butterflies. Butterflies. I love butterflies. There are so many butterflies around me. She looks at a butterfly and that gives an idea, right? That's okay. I'm going to create something about butterflies, right? I'm going to create some business, some product around butterflies. I don't know if the sound is coming or not, but that's how she is dancing, cheering up that, oh, I got an idea to do something about butterfly and all. And then she said, yes, I have become idea machine now. I have so many ideas I can create, start a business. Then what she does, the next step, logically, right? That's how people think that that's how we've been taught. She spends sleepless nights, right? Working on a laptop and sketches and creates some amazing products related to butterfly shaped bags, butterfly food, some butterfly related shaped tiffin boxes, whatever it is inspired by butterfly, certain products. She spends sleepless nights, right? And creates them. Then ultimately, once that product is ready, that is not. She's out there into the market to sell those, right? Just like most of you say, okay, I created this app, it could be an app, it could be a website, it could be a hardware product, AI based, ML based, cloud computing, but blockchain, something. We go out there and try to sell. But what happens? Nobody is willing to buy. Nobody is willing to buy. And the reason they are not willing to buy, we'll talk about it. What happens? After a while, Risha gets disappointed. She's like, why God, why is this happening with me only? I spend so much of time, I have so much of passion, so much of hard work, I created a product. Nobody's buying it. That's the typical experience of 80% of the startup founders. And some of you would also, hope you don't go through this because you're already learning this now. But most of the startups go through this phase, get an idea, work, days, night, hard, finally create that product, go to the market, launch it into the market, only to realize that nobody's buying it. Right? Website बना के रख दिए 50,000 1 lakh 1 lakh 2 lakh 5 lakh रुपया spent on the website, 20 lakhs rupees on app, and so have already hired interns and created a logo, amazing logo, spent 20,000 rupees on designing the logo itself, and got the company registered, got the logo trademark, all the things done. But when the product is actually in the market, nobody's installing the app, nobody's visiting the website, nobody's ordering the product. Then the entrepreneur is like, what? the hell went wrong? That's where this entire design thinking concept comes into picture. Same happened with Vidisha, and then so Vidisha decides to figure out what's wrong, and then she meets somebody like me, right? Then she realizes that what she was doing was all through wrong approach, right? What could have been a better approach? And that's where we present to you this concept of design thinking. There are multiple frameworks, multiple tools, multiple ways design thinking has been displayed. Though I'm sure if you have attended any other session before, one of the most common frameworks that you would have seen is the five-step Stanford design school का hexagon वाला thing. I saw that slide. Then there's another from Data School of Business where there are four questions, and then there's IDEO framework. It's inspiration, ideation, implementation, three-phase process. All of them ultimately the goal is same. So I kind of used to do a lot about with the Stanford School of framework early days, but now I'm more fond of this. And if you see that five step framework also is embedded within this double diamond. So this double diamond model of design thinking was proposed by the British design concept. Right? See, the way it works is on the left there's a trigger point. Trigger point is where you say, okay, that butterfly thing comes in. Oh, I want to do something about butterflies. I want to do something using blockchain for healthcare. I know AI, so I want to do something using artificial intelligence for elderly people, right? Whatever it is, I recently learned something about robotics, and can I create a robot? Something related to robotics I want to do that will help pregnant ladies. So that's a trigger. You don't know what that something would be, what exactly it would solve. Nothing, just an trigger of the thought, right? So that's where the process starts. Now, what usually happens is the moment you get that trigger, I know artificial intelligence and can I do something for elderly people. And you suddenly say, oh, ये elderly लोग हैं इनको बड़ा bore होता होगा, these people 65, 70 years of age, and we're not talking about people like Ratan Tata or Mukesh Ambani, right? We're talking about normal average middle class old man, senior citizen who after 60 retired from the bank, retired from a company or retired from his business and is just now home, ठीक ठाक सा घर है, kids are earning, does not have his own private choppers and BMW, does not own islands to enjoy life like Vijay Mallya. That's not normal. So these people must be so bored, right? So I want to create an app using artificial intelligence that will keep them entertained, that will know every day, give them some joke, send them some puzzle. And this is the top of the mind idea. I never discussed this. It's just something right now. I will create an app or website where every day they'll get a riddle to solve, a puzzle to solve, they'll get a movie, some jokes, some funny clips that will keep them entertained. Why? Fantastic. So trigger aya, suddenly you decided that I want to do this app and you go, you build that app, you go build that website, and then you ask it up, because you have an old person in your house, your grandfather, your grandmother, and you think, okay, he or she will also be interested in this. And at the end you work for a year, and then the app is finally into this Play Store. 6 months after putting it in the store, there are hardly 50 downloads. And out of those 50 downloads, 30 are your family friends. Right? What happened? Right? You jumped from the trigger part, extreme left, to the solution part that is on the extreme right, if you can see on the screen. And you skipped all the steps in between. And you have been punished for that by the god of startups, if there was any such god. What's the right process then? The right process is that you first, once you got a trigger, you go to the divergent mode of thinking. Now we're also going to talk about critical thinking, right? So critical thinking and creative thinking have two aspects. Creative thinking is where we are more to the divergent mode. Critical thinking. You get into the divergent mode. You say, okay, now I'm going to. This is the trigger that I want to use AI for the elderly people. How? I don't know. I'm not going to decide the solution sitting in my office or in my room, hostel room, but I create entertainment app. No. Let me just go and try to talk to these elderly people. That's where the entire process starts. Right? Empathy, empathize. What does it mean to empathize? Empathize is that I understand and feel that other person's problems. I walk, I feel his life, how he lives, identify what are his real pain point, what are his real problems in life, what are the problems for which he would be willing to pay me money to get those problems solved. So this starts with, you can go and interview certain senior citizens in your locality, and that number should be at least 10, 15, 20 people. Again, those should not be just your family, friends, and your grandparents, random people around. And then again, one thing, guys, when people talk about is that, like, okay, survey कर लिया, sir, Google form था, 50 senior citizen ने भर के दिया. Survey does not give exact results, right? We're talking survey form might help in the early stage just for to give you basic idea, but the real form but empathy starts when you go and talk to them in the setting of their living. So you could talk to them in a cafe, you could talk to them in a garden, right? We'll learn a lot. But if you go to their home, somehow if you're able to make them invite you to their home and you sit them inside their home, in their room, where they spend most of their time, and you talk to them there, you're like most likely to find so many more subtle, indirect clues about that person's life that he will never share in the interview. Right? So that is what we call as in context empathizing. So do that. That is one part. Second is observation. And you don't always have to, you will be able to go and talk to 10, 20, 15, 25 senior citizens, right? But you can observe so many of them. So just go to a garden in the morning and sit down on a bench and see how many senior citizens, what do they do? How long, see, find out places where these people hang out, local libraries, कहीं so small town तो कहीं गली नुक्कड़ में पेड़ वेड़ लगा होता है उसको कट्टा बना होता है उसपे शाम में ये लोग सारे बैठते हैं सारे गली सीनियर सिटीजन आके just from a distance, keep observe, right? Observe people around you, in your family, in your relatives, all those grandparents, grandfathers. What do they do, right? That's one thing. Second is try to hear, what do they keep talking about? What do they keep complaining about, right? And then also try to understand what do they feel. Because you might create a video game for them, say, okay, I'm going to help you, I'll create a video game. But those people, most of them have kind of, some feeling against video games. It's not a good thing. I mean, they don't let their grandkids play. They're against, they get angry, they don't like it when their grandchildren are playing. Obviously, when you ask them to play the game, there's going to be reluctance. So you understand that. What do they feel? What are their thought processes? What are they doing? Right? What kind of things? And you observe. You don't have a senior citizen, somebody in your house, go to a relative's place, a cousin's place, and cousin's place where there is some grandfather, new grandmother, living. Stay there for a couple of days if you can. Right? And just observe how their day goes. How do these people keep themselves entertained and engaged? They go to temples or mosques, whatever religion they belong to. They keep themselves engaged in the prayers, right? And then they would give engaged bhajan karega or something like that. They keep themselves engaged by listening to religious songs or religious bhajans or things like that, religious TV channels. If it's a male, most likely grandfather would most likely keep engaged in getting the political news. इधर ये हो रहा है उधर वो हो रहा है अपना comment pass कर रहे so lady probably she would be more interested in know what's happening in that cousin sister's mother-in-law sister's house whatever. So that's what the empathy phase is. And then once that is done, then you go into the convergence phase where you start thinking critically. Say, okay, amongst all the things I observed, what's that one thing that I think I can do about it? That's where you start concluding. You will find out hundreds of problems in their life, thousands of challenges in their life that you can solve. But of course, you don't have that much of time, energy. So you shortlist, you narrow down. That's after narrowing down, that is where you complete the first rhombus, the first diamond and the double diamond. The stage where you find the problem statement. That's where you define the problem. So now you see the beauty of here is the entire process is of two diamonds, two rhombuses, right? And your problem that you're going to solve comes after the first diamond is over. That means half 50% of your efforts, time, energy is spent even before you define the problem. Because we want to make sure that the problem we are solving is the right problem. And I usually say a wrong problem, no matter how brilliantly solved, is still wrong. So if I have got, say, headache because of migraine, right, and I go to the best of the best doctor, सबसे सस्ता no best of the best medicine मेरे को free में देता है, but if that medicine is about sinus pain and not migraine pain, right, it's not going to help. And then once I decided the problem statement, now I know, okay, this is one problem that I'm going to solve. Am I going to help them become more religious? Am I going to help them with their religious, prayer thing daily? Or am I going to help them meet similar like-minded people? Or am I going to help them read these newspapers in bold fonts? Or am I going to help them create a community of like-minded people where they can go and play games in the evening? Stop. Or am I going to help them create a gossip platform where all these grandmothers can just come and gossip, whatever it is? So that's the problem you just identified, right? And then you again start diverging. Then you say, okay, now we start into ideation phase. We start finding the solution. The first time diamond here is called finding the right problem, right? Don't directly assume the problem. You say, I'm going to find what exactly is the problem. Then you go to finding the right solution where you go into the ideation mode, again the creative thinking, diversion mode, you come up with solutions. Then what happens the moment you come up with solution, again you jump to implement. That's not the way. So then you create simple prototypes and then you test those prototypes. So if let's say my goal was that I'm going to create an app that will send the elderly people one interesting, joke every day. Let's say, assume completely, for the sake of simplicity. Again, that idea may not work, but for the sake of discussion, let's say that you identify that these people have lack of humor in their life. So the problem I have identified is that how might we bring more humor into the life of elderly people, and then you want to create a solution around that. So you say, okay, we are going to do a lot of things into your humor. We will do weekly, we'll do one stand-up comedy show online that these people can watch on Zoom or somewhere. And then we're going to do a lot of things. So we're going to do certain prank events with them. And we will also daily, we are going to send them one joke. And we think that if we can do this, this senior citizens, if, whoever they can afford, they will be happily willing to pay us 500 rupees per month subscription for our app. That's my belief, right? What I do is rather than going and spending 10 lakhs, 5 lakhs, 2 lakhs on building that app, and then finding out that the senior citizens are not interested. What I do, I'll say, okay, I just create a Google form among these people and say, we are creating a service like this. The actual app and service is going to come up. So it would be something different, but you just create a WhatsApp broadcast list. If you're a member of our WhatsApp broadcast list, every morning on WhatsApp, we'll send you a joke. WhatsApp broadcast list is not your final product. Of course, you're going to create an app. What happens based on the number of people who join that, you get an idea, right? Are people actually interested in receiving jokes? Because if they're not interested in receiving a joke for free on WhatsApp, where they don't have to install a separate app, where they don't have to pay you anything, still if they're not willing to get it, then you have to question yourself: will they install my app and pay me? But if you get good response, you're like, okay, cool. And then again in the process, you will get feedback from them. What kind of a jokes do they want? Do they want a joke in the morning when they wake up, or do they want a joke in the night when they're about to sleep? Things like that. And based on those feedbacks, so to create this prototype here in this case using a WhatsApp, somewhere you can create a website prototype using just a PowerPoint template. Sometimes it's a physical product, you could create it using thermocol and cardboard sheets, and then you test it, right? Just as I said, you add people to the WhatsApp group and test it. Based on the feedback, you again go back, prototype, come up with new ideas, and ultimately, finally, you conclude to one solution. That's the fun. How this is how my app is going to be. This is where the joke is going to be. These are the kind of jokes. These are the features. There will be like feature. There will be a ha 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 button on the app, whatever it is. Then you actually go and implement it. So that entire combination of finding the right problem and finding the right solution is what design thinking is. So coming back to the favorite model that everybody uses, since people use it, I want to put it high. So again, the same thing we already discussed earlier. So first step in design thinking is how do I approach the challenge? That's the empathy phase, right? Again, to just recap, interview people, and I have slide. Whatever I'm speaking, in fact, I have slides for everything. I deleted those slides today because I realized, if there was a slide on interview, right, there was a slide on prototyping. What is prototyping? But then I realized when you're sharing slides in an online session, people tend to just take screenshots or photos. They don't listen to what you're speaking. And then those screenshots and photos make no sense because half of the images, anyways, we also bring from Google. It's not that we start creating our own images. So this is what's the point. So I started reducing the number of slides only to bare minimum, and a lot of things I don't put on the slide, I just pick it up. So to summarize, in the empathy phase, you interview people, you observe them, see their surroundings and silent observation. You might conduct surveys also and try to figure out what exactly the problem is. And then in the define phase is where you actually interpret your observations. What did I observe? And based on that, what are the needs? What are the problems I can come down to? Then the ideation phase where you brainstorm, you come up with multiple solutions, right? And then out of those multiple solutions, so there are multiple ways of voting. Again, not beyond the scope of a 1 hour, 2 hour discussion, but you have the dot voting system, 2 by 2 matrix system, and multiple voting systems where which you shortlist some of them, based on your impact and what impact and cost impact analysis. Like what's going to be the impact of this idea, how much is it going to cost, and accordingly we do that. And then comes tradition. You create certain prototypes. You test those prototypes with your end user, with your target user, and based on the feedback you get in the testing of the prototype, you again come back, probably change the prototype, sometimes change the idea, sometimes you redefine the problem, sometimes you go back and do empathy again. And that's how the entire process works. It's an iterative process, keeps working. Just a quick slide, another of my favorite slides again here. What's the difference between the conventional way of innovation or coming up with product services and the design thinking approach? So conventionally, traditionally, most of the methods, and I'm a Six Sigma black belt also, so even in Six Sigma also, the focus is also on finding what is the right answer. But in design thinking, the focus is on asking what is the right question. Because if I can get the right question, our answers will follow. Right? But if I don't focus much on that, so it's like normally, I usually give an example of the doctor that if I go to a doctor, I sit in front of him, the doctor says, okay, smile. Why are you? I say, doctor, sir, having headache, dizziness. I got some chest pain as well. The throat is also aching. Like, oh, okay. He takes his prescription pad, writes 3, 4 medicine, gets okay, puts one injection right through my shoulder, my arm, and probably gives a set of medicines and says, I've got the injection and get the medicines, take this. How confident would I be in that doctor? Yeah, ना temperature measure किया, now stethoscope लगा के, he did not even measure my pulse. He did not even touch me. He does not even check my body temperature. He did not even see my heartbeats. He did not even measure my heartbeats. Did not even measure my blood pressure. Did not do any tests. Just saw, I said, okay, I'm having these things, headache and dizziness and throat problem. And he's like, okay, these are the medicines. Compare this to another doctor. When I go to him, he's like, okay, come here. He's 2 minutes he spends on the stethoscope, is measuring my heartbeats and my pulse rate. He measures my blood pressure, records it down, asks me what did I eat last night, what did I eat yesterday, did I travel, did I have something allergy. He asks me, do I have any allergies, do I have any earlier family diseases, hereditary diseases like diabetes or something like that. Have I ever, do I smoke, do I drink, do I eat non-veg? And hundreds of questions he's asking. Then before he prescribes something, he takes a prescription pad. He's not giving many medicines. He writes a couple of tests. This blood test, urine test, go do the CBC test and this test and all the protein test or whatever. Then I go to the lab. I get those tests with the reports. I come back maybe evening or next day. Then based on the entire report, the blood test report, probably sometimes it's MRI, sometimes it's X-ray, right? Sometimes it's a CT scan and ECG report, maybe, and then history and whatever answers are given. Based on that, they will give me prescription. Which of the doctors is more likely to gain my confidence? Which of the prescriptions I'm more likely to be confident in? Obviously, the second one, right? Reason is because the first doctor was just figured on finding the right treatment for. ठीक है, ये ज्यादा symptoms, ये दवाई ले लो, ये दवाई ले लो, ये नहीं चलेगा, 2 दिन के बाद आना, कुछ और try करें. Second case, the doctor was more focused on finding the right disease, the right problem. He was like, let me figure out what actually the problem is, because if I can do that, then treatments I know kaha kaun se. That's the same approach we talk about when we talk about solving problems, coming up with startups and innovation, right? There's a lot of things. You can take a screenshot of the slide if you want. I'm not going to go through all these points over here. Right? In the larger version, we usually spend 1 hour 90 minutes on this one slide only. But here, another quick point over here is, in the traditional approach, we focus more on the facts. The design thinking approach, we focus more on the feelings, because people these days don't just buy in products or services; they buy emotions, they buy experiences. So there's, I'm unable to give them those emotions and those experiences. Nobody's interested in this materialistic objects anymore, just for the sake of. So that's the reason. When you buy iPhone, you're not buying just this phone. Buying 70,000 iPhone, that phone actually does not cost more than 15,000-20,000 rupees. Paying 20,000, 25,000 rupees for that, remaining for 30, 40, 50,000 rupees, you're paying for that experience. You're paying for the emotion of having an iPhone, the status emotion that you get, feeling of being special, being somebody who owns cyber that you get, that is what you are paying for. Right? So a lot of ladies who know there's a lot of this Louis Vuitton on the other purses. When I was an engineering college student, cousin sister had cousin brother, sorry, Hyderabad runs a shop, exchanging stuff and all. To have ladies' purses that would sell for 30,000, 40,000, 1,500, 2,000, 5,000, so 30,000 per purse. What's so special about this purse? I mean, is this first made by the skin of unicorn or what? Nothing. It's just leather and all. मुझे Louis Vuitton का tag लगता है ना, उसका पैसा. So when these ladies go around in these high-profile clubs and parties and all, so they keep checking each other's purses. इसका पर्स पर कौन सा logo है? For that logo. So that's what we're talking about. Now, as I say, it's not only about certain framework. It's more importantly, design thinking is about mindset, right? So, what are a few mindsets that you need to embrace? And again, as I said, that's the reason. This mindset part is the reason I appreciate design thinking so much, because if I can adopt these mindsets, it helps me in every aspect of life. First is empathy, right? I can empathize with people. First, me, it helps you in your relationships. I'm sure some of you, if not all, some of you ended up screwing up things in the last week instead of making things up. Wanted to celebrate Valentine's, you wanted to make that person happy, you do things, but you did not get, you could not do it as well as you wanted, or probably even if you did not get that level of excited response from the opposite side as you expected. The reason, the gift that you chose, most of the cases, the venue you chose for the dinner, the flowers you chose, the surprises that you chose, were the gift, the venue, the dinner, the menu that you wanted most. If you would have empathized with that other person, if you were listening the entire year, right? कभी तो सीन में 6 महीने पहले कभी तो एक बार बोला होगा कि ना वो मूवी के अंदर का वो कैरेक्टर मेरे को पसंद है. And now if you're giving a cushion pillow, if that character was on that pillow, that would have made a lot of difference. But then that requires empathizing constantly. You cannot just sit down one day before the birthday, that or that anniversary day, or that Valentine's Day, and one day before you gotta sit down and start making a list. Oh my God, what does this person like? Let me make a list, and then I'll decide. Okay, it doesn't work. If you're not listening entire time, you're not empathizing all the year, एक दिन पहले बैठ के नहीं होता. And giving this example because it's a recent thing, works in every relationship with your boss and subordinate, between teacher students, between father son, between husband wife, brother sister, between friends, best friends, between colleagues, wherever. If you can empathize and can understand things from their perspective, right, you will talk the way they want to. Relate better, your gifts will relate better. And it's not only about gifts, by the way. Gift as example here. Everything. If a boss understands the subordinates better, he will talk to them like that. When giving them assignment, when giving them tasks, right? And same will happen on the employee side. It's very, very important. Second is optimism, of course. It's all about optimism. Not optimistic about something I'm doing, I don't feel excited. As simple as that. Third is embrace ambiguity. If you're doing something new, it's always ambiguity. Paths are always ambiguous. You don't have clarity where this will lead. And that's the fun part of it, right? So if you are not ambiguous there, so again, giving the example, when you're in that period when you're still not seriously committed to somebody, right? So the period before that is full of ambiguity. You don't know whether we'll be committed or not, whether we'll get engaged or not, whether we'll get married or not. That period is full of ambiguity. That's the period where you have most fun. Once that ambiguity is gone, once you are formally engaged, and then once you are formally married, we hear so many jokes about that. Again, not exaggerated also, but you get the point over here. So ambiguity is going to be there. Then ambiguity in life, it's going to be difficult to be innovative at startup. Learn from failure. We all keep talking about it. So I don't want to talk about it. And iterate. Again, iteration is every time you fail, come back, change something, make a new iteration, change the design, change the colors, change the approach, change the problem that you're solving, change the prototype, whatever is required. Make it is where we talk about prototyping. So design thinking, we focus on rather than you coming up and say, oh no, this is the idea in my mind, this is what I want to do. Can you create a physical, tangible thing? Maybe write it down on a piece of paper. Maybe sketch it, this is how it's going to look. Maybe create a 3D model on the computer. That makes so much more difference. So so much more impact. So now currently we have a startup. It's a girl from Pune. She runs a startup called this. She's actually working with some artisans and artisans a product like she sells in a way that the artisans also benefit. So one of the products she's working on is some marks made out of Jaipur blue stone. So she gets them done from a artisan artist in Jaipur. उसका family खानदानी business and they make it in a different unique way. So they naturally handmade work, chemical free and stuff like that. And what now she does is that she designs. So those artisans have their own designs. Such as she designs for them. Custom design बना के that she sends to the artisans that they make it. So now we were ordering a couple of set for our incubation center. Several months and we said yeah, the months that we drink coffee जो मंगाया था that's a ceramic वाला. There's a lot of lead and chemical content which is not good for health. It's a local handicraft वाला startup. Let us support. So artisans also will be handmade chemical free. So we said we'll order from this. She created design for us, incubation the customer design. Now she's important. She made a design in PowerPoint. She can send that design directly to the artist in Jaipur and he will make those marks. The problem is what if once the design comes, we don't like it. Because abhi to jo design she's showing us is on a PowerPoint. Yeah, no, the first half of the mug 180 degree will be this design, this logo, आपका logo पीछे ये design रहेगा ऐसा देखिए. Difficult for me to visualize that. It's okay, but what is the when the mug comes and जो mug के ऊपर print होने के बाद what if we don't like? That's why what she does is she does not directly send it to them. She has hired a graphic illustrator. What does a graphic illustrator do? Whatever she has designed in the PowerPoint, उसको उठाता है. He actually creates a 3D mug in some graphic. I don't know, Adobe Illustrator या कुछ software में करता है. But in the software he creates exactly the 3D mug, puts that design on it, and he actually shows a 3D model of the mug how it would look, just like the architect shows you the model of the house, right? Instead of your house. Same way he creates a 3D mock-up. So when I see on my computer screen, it's exactly how the mug is going to be. Now I can relate better, understand the design better. Now if I only change it to the design, and tell them, yellow is then you put it there, you can change this color. Then after those things are done, then she will send that mock-up to the artist and he will make them. So what she's doing, that digital mock-up that she's doing is a prototype. She's making rather than just telling, मेरे mind में सारी idea है, हम यहाँ पे एक logo डालेंगे, वहाँ पे हम incubation और entrepreneurship लिखेंगे, okay done, and then she sends to the artist, and when the mock comes to say ये क्या बना दिया. Don't do that. That's why we emphasize so much on prototyping. Right? She's going to have some extra cost for that prototype, but that will make sure that when the mugs come, they're exactly the way we expect them. Right? Otherwise, the 10,000, 12,000 mugs will go to waste. Where SIT building? पीछे लगा है ना इतने बड़े बड़े प्रिंट आउट लगा है देखते हैं. So I'm in the middle of a session. Okay, so I'll just take a break for 30 seconds. If anybody has any question, any questions so far? Okay. So having said that, again, this is a certain slides I'm going to skip for now, but this is how you the entire empathy mapping. Some of you might have done some of them in other sessions, so I'm not taking it. Just trying to touch on a different angle here. The three, again, I don't know if you've seen this diagram before, but the most important parameters again say that any innovation, any innovative product solution that you come up with has to satisfy three criteria, right? One is it feasible from a technology perspective? This can we do? When we say technology, feasibility is not technology actually. It could be availability of network, availability of the equipment, availability of the machines, infrastructure, money, resources, all this. Can I do it? Second is business viability. I can do it, but does it make business sense? I can do a lot of things, but if it is going to be lost, people are not going to buy it at a price higher than my cost, then it makes no sense. The third is, what's important is people desirability. What happens conventionally is people start with the technology visibility. So, okay, I have learned AI. I know about AI. I know a couple of senior citizens. मैं कुछ तो AI use करके senior citizens पे भी started with the technology part. I can do that. And then, okay, can I make a business around it? Okay, yeah, I think, it will cost me 2 lakh rupees for this, 3 lakh for this, or 5 lakh. If I get like 1 lakh download at 50 rupees is 50 lakh rupees, yes, it makes business sense. Then you create everything and you go to the market and you tell me what is willing to. हाँ बोलो सेशन में हो अभी कल अभी आज जाते वक्त का लेके जाऊंगा कल आके यहाँ लाने का लेके आऊंगा So, what usually happens is you create using that AI as a certain app, and then you see service reliability, and then you create that app, launch it, and then you realize nobody desires it. People don't desire it, right? What we talk about in design thinking is can we flip the order? Rather than starting with the technology or the business part, can we start with the people part first? Before I even spend 1 rupee, can I just go and talk to people, understand, as we said, empathy based, and figure out if people would actually want it? And then see, okay, people want it, but does it make business sense? Can I make money out of it? And if both of these conditions are satisfied, then I go and say, okay, now let me see how do I build it. Because technology visibility part, even if you don't have it, you can acquire it. I mean, people want AI-based entertainment app. I don't know AI. I don't know how to code. Fine, I can hire somebody. I can hire interns. I can get it outsourced from freelancers, or I can learn in 2, 3, 4 months through Coursera or other program, right? That is something I can do. If technology feasibility अगर मेरे पास नहीं है अगर पैसा नहीं है पैसा I can borrow from bank from somewhere, right? If infrastructure नहीं है I can rent it out. I think those things are possible. But the desirability, people don't desire. I cannot change the desirability. अगर लोगों को नहीं चाहिए तो नहीं चाहिए उसको आप नहीं change कर सकते. That is not in your control. So why not start with something first? If people want it, then it's fine. Then I'll do everything else now. Rather than doing things first and then figuring out when people don't want it. That's the entire cycle, cycle that we talk about. Yeah. Then, so again, just to give now, since we talk about design thinking, a little bit about the creative thinking aspect, and then we'll move to the critical thinking part as well. Best way when you talk about creativity, it's all about coming with ideas. It's the best way to come up with ideas is lots of ideas. There's a law called law of 100. If you want one good idea, you need to come up with 100 ideas. तब जाके you get one good idea. Then we talk about brainstorming. So again, a lot of time brainstorming does not give results. And the reason is people don't follow certain rules of brainstorming. Right? So one most important rule in brainstorming is to defer judgment. When you're discussing ideas, initial statement, don't start evaluating. Just let the ideas keep coming, and then you can evaluate them at a stage, right? Keep encouraging wild ideas, random, very crazy ideas that may seem impractical right now, but still note them down initially. Right? It's very important in brainstorming that you're building on each other's ideas. If I say something and you just cross my idea, it kills that target, right? So rather than cutting each other's idea, can you build on each other's idea? Right? You have to stay focused on time. One person speaks at a time. You can make it visual, and as you said, you go for quantity initially in brainstorming rather than focusing on the quality. Quantity ज़्यादा बढ़ते निकलेगा तो quality अपने आप. Just a sample prototype to show you. Let's talk about the second aspect about critical thinking. So again, this is the second part. Now, as I said, critical thinking. If you notice those double diamond model, first we're talking about diverging, then we're talking about converging, right? So every time we talk about converging, actually we are engaging into critical. Right? When we're diverging, we are to creative thinking. When we're converging, we are to critical thinking. So what exactly is critical thinking? Again, there are definitions from the internet. There are multiple definitions. This is a simple definition that I like. Right? It is studying, observing, and analyzing the information carefully before you give a conclusion. Very important, right? Normally, we don't do that. This guy sitting over here, and I'm just talking, and suddenly, now this is the information you're getting, right? And you come to a conclusion. Okay, this person is an expert in design thinking, or is not an expert in design thinking. The information that you got through my introduction, through my bio, and the way I spoke, the content I give, Right? Without analyzing that, you will either make a conclusion that I am an expert or I'm not. As a critical thing that you will study, observe, and analyze it carefully before you come to that conclusion. Okay, let us see. Just because he delivered one session good does not make him an expert. Just because today he did not speak well does not make him not a good expert, right? So that's what how critical thinker would look at things. That every information that's coming to you as an innovator, as a problem solver, we don't jump to conclusions. There's a lot, some more details we're going to develop, right? So again, what is critical thinking? Again, I found very interesting articles in this. Says this ability to develop a healthy skepticism, right? So you have to be skeptic, but healthy, not serious. There are people who are skeptic होते बाद जो who would kind of refute, oppose things just for the sake of that. Healthy skepticism is when you're doing skepticism, when you're doing from good intent, right? So when you're discussing an idea, your colleague says something, ऐसा कर उसने यार but इसमें अगर ऐसा problem हुआ तो now when you're saying that the intention is not find out faults, not to show that you are a fool. The intention is that no, if I come up with this point, then we will think about the solution and it will help us. तो कल जाके प्रॉब्लम नहीं आएगा उसके पहले ही हम सोच रहे हैं. And then again you apply reasoning and logic. Again you have to see things in open-minded way. And sometimes one of the more major things that's happening across the globe, right, in India outside, especially from the political circle, people are not willing to think they have an open-minded approach. एक mindset बना लिया, if I'm supporting this party, with this person, this ideology, whatever it is, then no matter what happens, I'm never open to consider other opinions. Doesn't work in business. You have to look at any concept, any action, any behavior, any statement made by anybody, be it a celebrity, be it a religious person, be it a political person, be it a teacher, trainer, speaker, whoever it is, right? Or their actions, their behaviors. So look at them from all the possible angles. And second is look past one's own worldview. When somebody says, my worldview might be, that for example, my worldview might be that mushroom is not good for them. Like, go on dinner for somebody with my friends. One of my friends orders a mushroom soup. What do you do? But start saying, क्या mushroom खा रहा है? Mushroom में ये नहीं होता है. मैंने कहीं तो पढ़ा है. No, it's my worldview, my view of the world. The mushroom is not good. Just a hypothetical example. That person, I might tell him, this is what I read. मैंने कई जगह पढ़ा था कि मशरूम खाने से ये हेल्थ इसलिए मैं नहीं खाता. I just thought I'll tell you बाकी तेरा decision. That's fine. But you don't start telling you are a crazy person. तो मशरूम खाता तेरे को इतना नहीं पता. You are an engineer, you are a science student. और तेरे को ये भी नहीं पता मशरूम से प्रॉब्लम. That's not how critical thinker work, right? So what are the characteristics of a critical thinker? And that's I hope that at least you try to imbibe some of them. Critical thinker knows his or her own mind. What it means is that when he's thinking, he knows कि मेरा mind हमेशा किस एंगल पर सोचता है. मेरा mind हमेशा पैसे बचाने की सोचता है, पैसे खर्चे करने की सोचता है. So when I'm giving somebody advice, when somebody's telling me something, ऐसे क्यों किया? I know हाँ सही बात है. मेरे को पता है मेरा mind तो हमेशा पैसे बचाने या मेरा mind हमेशा पैसे उड़ाने की तो सोचता है. तो मेरे को पापा ने डांट दिया, मम्मी ने डांट दिया, सही तो बोला मेरा mind. If I know my mind, I know my actions. It's very important. They're honest with themselves. Right? Sometimes a critical thinker says no, even if something is, they know that it's not true, they will accept it. If I'm following a certain celebrity, for example, nobody's perfect, by the way, right? No political leader, no celebrity, no engineer, no scientist, no businessman is 100% perfect. Nobody is Dudka Dula. He is 100% a saint. Saints भी आज तक jail में जा रहे हैं. So the point is, everybody has a person. I am not perfect, you are not perfect. I have my own good things, positive things. I have my own limitations, my own drawbacks, my own. But what happens is, कभी-कभी we talk about that. So you follow a certain Bollywood celebrity, वो कुछ अच्छे काम करता है, but उसके कुछ negative side भी. What happens? And कि उसकी ये गलती है. Internally कि हाँ ये बंदा अच्छा है overall, but नहीं ये काम इसने गलत भी किया है. But even when somebody points those things out, there are वो celebrity hero, there are वो political leader, वो तो ये गलत काम करता है. You don't accept it. Internally से खुद से पता है, but you don't accept it because you follow that person. Right? So again, that leads to third point. Acknowledge all the truth, even the unpleasant ones. So if I am following some celebrity, if I am following Amitabh Bachchan, for example, and it's something that Amitabh Bachchan says or does, if I am a fan of Amitabh Bachchan, but something that Amitabh Bachchan says or does, that's not good, right? Am I willing to acknowledge कि हाँ यार अमिताभ बच्चन अच्छा बंदा है, मैं फॉलो करता हूँ उसका, बट ये बात में गलत किया उसने, इस पे मैं उसके साथ नहीं, दिस आई डिड नॉट लाइक. A critical thinking person will do that. Right? They accept responsibility and accountability for their actions. No blame game. Right? And they will accept sound arguments, real arguments, even if that means rejecting their own. What that means? If I started with an argument, yes, you said something else, we were on the opposite, right? And then after a while, if you end up convincing me, कि मेरे को कुछ information पता नहीं थी, there were certain data points, certain facts that I was unaware of, certain recent developments that I was unaware of, and then you told that to me, and then after that, I think, okay, now after in light of the new facts that you brought up, probably what you say is more correct. As a critical thinker, I should be able to accept your argument. Okay, ठीक है, initially my argument was opposite to you. Now that you have brought up these points, in light of those fact points, I think that this is right. Right? ना ये नहीं कि बस मैंने एक बार जो पहले शुरू में ये बोला था तो यही बोला था, आखिर तक मैं वही बोलता रहेगा. Right? A critical thinking person bases their judgments on evidence, not on emotions and facts. Just because that hero looks like me, or just because he portrayed a character in a movie that resonates with me, I'm going to support him. No. Right? उसके अगेंस्ट कोई केस भी चल रहा है, किसी ने उसके अगेंस्ट कोई एलिगेशन लगाया और आप बोलते हैं ये तो ऐसा कर ही नहीं सकता, क्यों भाई? And do you have an evidence? No, but so getting the point. So that's very important. There is manipulation. ना तो वो खुद मैनिपुलेट करेगा किसी को, ना किसी का मैनिपुलेशन. The day we all Indians become critical thinkers, सारे political parties की बैंड बच जाएगी. Because उनका पूरा गेम मैनिपुलेशन पे चलता है आज की डेट में, right? And probably that's one of the reasons, I don't know, but one of the reasons sometimes I think why critical thinking is not included in school syllabus. I used to think, and then I realized what political party, irrespective of what party, what political party would want to put that acts on their own field. Critical thinking syllabus. अभी डाल रहा है, I don't know, but again, it's not to that extent, right? They balance their thinking and they are intellectually independent, so they have their independent thinking. They cannot like it's a सारी herd mentality ऐसे चल जा रही है, तो हम भी वो नहीं करेंगे. Now, another important thing when it comes to critical thinking is facts versus opinions. Very important. I mean, आज के दिन everybody is enforcing their personal opinions on us and showcasing as if it's a fact. तो यही हम नहीं समझते, इसी पे सारी लड़ाई झगड़ा है, फैमिलीज के अंदर, भाई भाई के अंदर, बिजनेस पार्टनर्स के अंदर, बिटवीन रिलेशनशिप हस्बैंड वाइफ कपल्स के बीच में, फादर सन के बीच में, स्पाउसेस के बीच में, नेबर्स के बीच में, पॉलिटिकल पार्टीज को, between the followers or karyakartas of two political parties, right? And half of your hate speeches and everything is based on this only, facts versus opinion. That facts are realities. To change, you should be absolutely right. When I say this phone in my hand, this is black in color. Sorry, it's not black actually, it's kind of a greenish color, but you said it was black, right? Or if I say this particular charger here is black in color, that's a fact. Now, no matter Barack Obama comes, Donald Trump comes, Joe Biden comes, any president of the American United States, any prime minister of the country comes, and if you ask what color is this, sir, he's going to say black. That's a fact, unless you are colorblind. Right? The facts are there. Apple is red. Right? Sugar tastes sweet. Right? Cow gives milk. These are facts. India is rich in minerals, for example. And India is a primarily agricultural economy. Fact. So I think that can be, fact is one thing, it's universally acceptable. Fact is something that can be verified. Right? Verified in an unbiased way. If I say India is a primarily agro economy, and if somebody from Japan comes and says, ऐसे कैसे बोल दिए? So you can verify, go check India में कितना business आता है, कितना GDP है, all the data is there, and figure out what percent of GDP comes from agriculture. You figure out primary majority of our income agriculture से आ रहा है, right? So I can verify. I say that my car that I own, I bought a car yesterday, it's red. And you say ऐसे कैसे? ऐसे नीचे खड़ी पार्किंग में जाके देख लो for yourself. You see it's red. Right? So facts are verifiable. Opinions are beliefs or our judgments. The opinions are not always correct. वहीं पे सारी गड़बड़ हो जाती है, right? This entire issue, this entire problem in this entire country and the world, especially again, I'm referring to politics not because I am a political person or I have any affiliations, but politics is something where all this critical thinking is very, very dominant. All the fallacies actually, or the what you can say manipulation because of the lack of critical thinking on the part of public is very much high. It's very predominant. It's very easily visible. All of us can easily relate to it. So as an example, it's a very easy example to explain and to understand. That's why I'm using So see, a lot of these things happening. Opinions are being pushed on to you as facts. Politically, any political party guy stands up, picks up something that somebody opposition from the opposition party did, and then makes his opinion about that, and makes you believe that his opinion about the opposition. When I say opposition, I'm not saying that this is the government has to be, but for the opposition, the government is opposition. Right? So opposing party, who were the opposing parties? So picks up any, creates his opinion, and makes you feel that that's the fact. Right? BJP would do that to Congress, Congress would do that to BJP, then both of them would do that to AAP would do the same thing to both of them. That's how the passing the ball happens. And that's the way that it works, right? So very important that we start deciding when we are designing products or services. Are we designing it based on facts or opinions? As I said again, no, the elderly people, the senior citizens are bored and they need entertainment. Is it a fact or is it your opinion? Because if it's a fact, then that's okay. If it's your opinion, might be wrong. If you build your business on or your startup or your mission only around opinions, there are chances of it. इसीलिए जब पोल आता है, जो एग्जिट पोल आता है, कई बार उसको ओपिनियन पोल भी बोलते हैं. Because it's the opinion of the people. It may not be fact, and that's why the actual results a lot of time differs from those opinion polls. Right? सबसे बड़ा एग्जांपल है, the opinions are not always the facts. ये पोल में कोई और पार्टी दिखाता जीतते हुए, आपने जीत के कोई और आती है. So second thing is that even the greatest experts sometimes might have incorrect opinions. Facts will remain same. Again, as I said, fact चाहे मैं बोलूँ 10 साल का बच्चा भी बोलेगा कि ब्लैक चार्जर तो ब्लैक है, 70 साल का PhD फ्रॉम हार्वर्ड बंदा भी will come and say ब्लैक कलर का चार्जर तो ब्लैक है. That's why if you when you have a heart disease, when you have cancer, some big disease, you should go to an expert, a surgeon. Right? And of course, you go to somebody who's reputed, but after that, we एक second opinion ले लेते हैं. Let's go and talk to another doctor. Why? Because this first doctor, first physician's opinion might be flawed. Even though he's qualified, he's one of the best heart surgeons in the city. फिर भी उसका opinion के बाद you go to somebody else also. Not because you don't trust that person, but you're like, हो सकता है इससे गलती हो जाए opinion. And that's why we go and take somebody else's opinions. How often we do that in our day-to-day life? If only we started doing that. If somebody came and told you, that celebrity is not good, right? Fine, that's your opinion. Let me find out somebody else's opinion. I'll take 7, 8 opinions, and then I will decide कि वो celebrity अच्छा है करा है. That politician is corrupt. Fine, ठीक है, तूने बोल दिया, that's fine. That's your opinion. Let me talk to a few more people. Let me figure out from internet. Let me actually find out facts, and then I will make my opinion. एक बंदा आके बोल दिया वो अच्छा है तो हमने मान लिया कि politician corrupt है, वो politician गंदा है, ये ऐसा है, वैसा है. That's how this entire chaos happening. Right? Most important is that's why you need to do some research about it. No, okay, research again is not the technical research, but find out facts. Research is about finding out facts. They also understand how easy it is to be mistaken, so they form their opinion with care, very carefully they form their opinion. They revise their opinion. You might have, okay, this XYZ politician leader or this XYZ celebrity is good. Probably he was good so far. बट देन यू रियलाइज करो ये पहले तो अच्छा था, अभी फालतू के मूव्स कर रहा है, ये फालतू का कुछ कर रहा है, इसके ऊपर तो मी टू वाले केसेस भी हो रहे हैं, ये तो ही इज नॉट गुड. सो नाउ अर्लियर माय ओपिनियन वाज गुड, आई यूज्ड टू पोस्ट अबाउट हिम ऑन सोशल मीडिया, ही इज माय आइडल, ही इज माय रोल मॉडल, इज अमेजिंग. बट नाउ सी दैट पहले वाला नाउ इज चेंजिंग. सो इफ द फैक्ट्स चेंज, आई एम ओके टू रिवाइज माय ओपिनियन. एंड उसी आदमी के बारे में बोलूंगा, कल तक मैं इसको रिस्पेक्ट करता था, नाउ आई डोंट थिंक इज अ गुड मैन. राइट? When I realized that my earlier opinion about him was wrong. So a critical thinker is willing to accept that. It's a quote by Warren Buffett. Warren Buffett for years said that never invest in airlines. He's invested in a lot of things. Airline business में कभी he did not invest. And he was like, airline business is not good for stock investment. And then a few years ago, he started investing in airlines. And somebody asked him, Salu, you told the entire world not to invest in airlines. Now you're investing. And he said, when the facts change, I change my opinion. So earlier, in those days, airline business was not a good business. So I am my own opinion. Now in the recent days, it is becoming a good business now, survival business. So fact has changed. पहले fact था कि अच्छा business नहीं है. अब fact है कि now it is doing good. Fact has changed. My opinion has changed. He was a good actor पहले. He is not. He was a good politician probably. He was doing good work somewhere, but now it is not doing. So fact has changed. He was a good team member. He was a good employee पहले, but he is not anymore. Right? There's no shame in being wrong. The reason people do not change their opinion is because यार कल तक तो मैं इस XYZ शाहरुख खान, सलमान खान, अमिताभ बच्चन, अक्षय कुमार की बड़ी तारीफ करता था सोशल मीडिया पे, इनके फोटो डालता था। अब आज आप रियलाइज करिए बंदे ने कुछ गलत किया है, बट अगर आज मैं इसके बारे में कुछ गलत लिखूंगा तो मेरे दोस्त बोलेंगे क्यों, कल तक तो बड़ी तारीफ करता था, कल तक तो इसी पार्टी लीडर के पीछे पड़ा था, कल तक तो इसी पार्टी को मानता था, कल तक तो इसी कंपनी के गुण गाता था, कल तक तो इसी सेलिब्रिटी, इसी एक्ट्रेस के पीछे भागता था, आज क्यों? So it's embarrassment, right? कि हाँ, because then I have to accept yes, I was wrong till yesterday in following this person. That is why what we do is even if inside we believe that this is wrong, we do not accept it. But a critical thinker knows that there is nothing wrong in that. That it could be wrong. That was my opinion, and yes, now I realize तब तक नहीं पता था, अब पता चला इसका ऐसा कर तुझे, that's fine. Okay? So again, just to give a quick example, I will put it over there. That's what is the fact? Sachin Tendulkar is a famous cricket player. That is a fact. Nobody can change it. Right? Sachin Tendulkar is a cricket player and is famous. As simple as that. Right? What is opinion? That Sachin should have retired sooner. That's your opinion. सचिन का ओपिनियन हो सकता है कि मैं सही टाइम पे रिटायर हुआ, और कुछ और लोग हो सकते हैं भाई जिनका ओपिनियन ये हो कि सचिन शुड हैव रिटायर एटलीस्ट 2 years लेटर, 2 साल और खेल सकता था। प्रॉब्लम क्या होती है ना कि हम लोग सारी जो लड़ाई बहस डिबेट इवन मीटिंग ब्रेनस्टॉर्मिंग जो करते हुए कभी स्टार्टअप आइडियाज और पॉलिटिकल डिबेट होते हैं, पार्लियामेंट्री डिबेट्स देख लो फॉर एग्जांपल, क्लासिक एग्जांपल, देयर इज नो डिबेट हैपनिंग ऑन फैक्ट्स इन द पार्लियामेंट, इट्स ऑल ऑन ओपिनियंस, आई डोंट नो व्हाई। So when I look at them, I'm like, ये भाई फैक्ट पे बात तो कर ही नहीं रहा, हर कोई अपने ओपिनियन पे लड़ रहा है। Same thing happens in your brainstorming. When you're coming up with a solution, you know, nobody talks about the fact whether this product will work or not, whether the customer wants it or not, whether this looks good. अब मेरा ओपिनियन क्या है उसके ऊपर लड़ाई होती है, then the product never moves in innovation team, right? Same thing happens with any team, not only brainstorming. If you're working with any team, with ESL team, ISC का team, when you're working company में जाके when you work with a team, most of the indifferences happen on your opinions. फैक्ट पे तो बहस हो नहीं सकती ना, जो फैक्ट है, फैक्ट एज आई सेड, अगर फॉर एग्जांपल सचिन फेमस क्रिकेट प्लेयर है तो है, उस पे कोई लड़ाई कर ही नहीं सकता। नोबडी कैन से नहीं सचिन इज नॉट अ क्रिकेट प्लेयर और सचिन इज नॉट फेमस, नो यू कैन नॉट, वहां तो ऑब्जेक्शन हो नहीं सकता। ऑब्जेक्शन, लड़ाई, डिबेट्स, आर्गुमेंट, ये ब्लेम गेम, ये कहाँ पे होगा? ओपिनियन के ऊपर होगा कि नहीं उसने रिटायर पहले क्यों किया, 2 साल के बाद रिटायर करता, 4 साल पहले रिटायर करता, वहां पे लड़ाई होगी। सचिन क्रिकेट प्लेयर है, वो फैक्ट, उस पर कोई लड़ाई नहीं कर सकता, फैक्ट के ऊपर लड़ाई हो नहीं सकती। And अगर लड़ाई होगी नहीं, आर्गुमेंट होगा नहीं, डिबेट होगा तो पॉलिटिशियन को पता कैसे चलेगा? So anyways, so if you stay as one now, very important thing is when you're saying that something is a fact, if I come and tell you, this is a fact, right? And if that fact is not easily verifiable, it's not common. For example, if I tell you, Jeff Bezos is a business person, it's a fact, and it's a common knowledge. So you don't ask, किसने बोला आपको? You will accept it. हाँ, Jeff Bezos. I said Sachin Tendulkar is a cricketer. Fact है, और मैंने बोला, you guys accepted it. You did not ask for a proof. But sometimes if I tell you something, I say, if I tell you my blood group is B positive, for example, that's a fact. But it's not a common knowledge. Not everybody knows. If I tell you that this is a fact that my blood group is B positive, you might expect me to give a proof. क्या गारंटी आपका B plus आपको O plus भी हो सकता है, तो आप proof दिखाओ. So when you're saying stating a fact that is not very common, it's always a good practice, right? In your team, so that you share that fact along with them, right? And then when you put an opinion, right? Others have the right to disagree. So I say my blood group is B positive, that's fact. आप check कर सकते हो, कोई लड़ाई नहीं हो सकती. But if I say B positive is the best blood group, that's an opinion, because context specific. But if I say B positive वाले लोग ना बहुत अच्छे होते हैं, सबसे बेस्ट होते हैं, ये वाले बोलेंगे कि हमारे वाले अच्छे होते हैं. That's where people might disagree, and you have to agree to disagree. And then in some case, if you are not sure what I am saying is a fact or opinion, it's better to put it across as opinion. You can fact को as an opinion रखोगे, it's fine. Opinion को fact बना कर, because अब कितना हो रहा है, historic fact पुराने 50 साल पुराने history खुद के हम लेकर आते हैं, and we don't even know, because even you read history, historians, half of the history is opinion, by the way. I don't know why we don't understand that, because back in those days there was no mobile phones, no telephones, no recording devices, no cameras, no video things. तो वो historian ने जो किताब में लिखा 100 साल, 200 साल, 50 साल पहले उस जमाने में बहुत सारी चीजें, वो भी 50 लोगों से सुना के लिखा है. तो उसमें कितना ट्रूथ था, कितने लोगों ने अपनी साइड से में इस मसाला डाला था, nobody knows. And then if you look at so many instances, एक ही instance, एक ही personality, एक ही incidents, एक ही kingdom के ऊपर there are multiple historians who are written in totally different ways. Somebody has written this screen was good and nice, and somebody has written this screen was cruel. So the point is, and what we do is that when we do, in a way, a lot of history is also opinion, unless that's very verified by a lot of people. Multiple historians have said that. But वहाँ पे भी lie हो जाती है when you put up those references from history and we want to make them as fact because they favor us. So having said that, how does this again coming back to our topic of bringing these things together? So on one side you have creative thinking where you talk about imagination, invention, change, design, create. Right? It's the right brain, the metaphorical right brain that we talk about. The critical thinking is all about analyzing. Right? एक बंदा बोल रहा है इसके पीछे इंटेंट क्या हो सकता है, क्या ये सीरियल में सही है, या ये सिर्फ वोट मांगने के लिए, वोट जीतने के लिए कर रहा है, या ये सिर्फ प्रमोशन के लिए ऐसे कर रहा है, या सिर्फ जॉब लेने के लिए इंटरव्यू में ऐसा आंसर दे रहा है. Down to smaller steps, you compare. राइट, इसने सीवी में तो ये लिखा है, इंटरव्यू में तो कुछ और बोल रहा है. राइट, बोल तो रहा है कि मैं टीम प्लेयर, और कभी जिंदगी में कभी इसने कॉलेज के अंदर किसी टीम में काम तो किया नहीं. टेस्ट क्रिटिकल थिंकिंग, बातें तो ऐसी कर रहा है कि मैं इलेक्शन में ये करूंगा वो करूंगा, और पिछला इसका ट्रैक रिकॉर्ड तो कुछ और ही दिखा रहा है. सो those things, right? You categorize, you list, you sequence, you rank, all these things. And then when you combine both of this, if you remember the diamonds, you diverge, then you converge, then you diverge, then you converge, right? Together they lead to problem solving. Together they lead to innovation, right? When you can improve things, design things, refine, combine stuff, right? And then again, critical thinking is a very vast topic. I just try to bring in only those elements that are related to our innovation and startups, and of course, some examples that help you in the day-to-day life as well. So even if you don't want to innovate and be a startup, but the points that we have discussed will help you in your day-to-day life also. At least कल को जाके कोई भी Bollywood celebrity, कोई neighbor, कोई politician, somebody will not be able to do it. So see how we what's the it's a very beautiful dance between critical thinking and creative thinking, right? So you start by analyzing the problem first. Any problem that you get, you analyze the problem, right? That's the part of critical thinking, right? And then you go to the right and you imagine solutions. When you imagine solutions, you are into creative thinking zone. And once you imagine multiple solutions after brainstorming, you then evaluate and choose one of them, right? So when you are evaluating, that's again critical thinking. And then again, on that solution, you again come up with more innovations, add more features, right? Think more. That's again creative thinking. And then you go back to critiquing the solution, right? कि इसमें ये गलत है, ये ठीक नहीं है, अच्छा नहीं, इसको और improve कर सकते हैं. Again, you're going to be critical. And then you are improving it based on the critique you receive, you are improving it. That's again critical thinking. And when you go to the implementation part, that's again critical. So as I say in the beginning of the talk, critical thinking, creative thinking both go hand in hand, right? And it's just a nice dance between both of them. Another important aspect is, no, just remember this thing again. I found something interesting in somebody's blog over there. It's called RED, E to critical thinking, right? RED. R is recognize the assumptions, E is evaluate the arguments, and then draw the conclusion. So when somebody tells you anything about a product, surveys, about a political ideology, about a movie, about a business, about anything, first see what are the assumptions that person is making. Right? If I tell you that Radhe movie देखो बड़ी अच्छी है. Why? Because I know Salman Khan is a lead and I'm assuming Salman Khan की movie है तो अच्छी ही होगी. But when you say कि नहीं यार सर इसलिए बोलता है कि सलमान खान की मूवी इसलिए अच्छी होगी, बट जरूरी थोड़ी सलमान खान की मूवी अच्छी हो. अजम्पशन निकाल दो कि सलमान खान की मूवी मतलब अच्छी नहीं, जरूरी नहीं है. अब ये अजम्पशन हट गया तो बोलूंगा फिर कैसे अच्छी है? बस ट्रेलर देखो, रिव्यूज देखो, right? And then you evaluate those trailers, the reviews, and then you draw the conclusion. Just because my assumption was that Salman Khan की मूवी अच्छी होगी, any movie no. इस पर्टिकुलर बंदे ने स्टेटमेंट दिया है तो वो सच्चाई बोला होगा, not always, right? And then quickly to run you through certain cognitive biases. We have last 5 minutes, and it's a very important topic. So cognitive biases are by nature our programming, the way we think about things. We are all programmed in certain way, and we are biased in some way. All of us are. I am, even you are. Right? And some of those biases we can remove, some of them we can reduce, some we cannot. But at least if we are aware, our decision making becomes better. Right? So what? And there are like 30 plus biases that have been identified in psychology. It's a part of the neurolinguistic programming thing I do. But there are few biases that I have brought over that help us in terms of innovation creativity. One is the confirmation bias. So confirmation bias क्या होता है? We have a tendency, all of us, have to search for, interpret, and recall information in a way that suppose we already believe. What it means that if I believe that XYZ leader is a good leader, right? Now that leader might obviously have some good qualities, might have some not so good qualities, might have done some very amazing good work, might have done something that's not good. What happens when I look at information to validate? I will only focus on what good things he has done. If I believe Shah Rukh Khan or Salman Khan is a good actor, I will only look at his charity, their charity work, uh, their good movies. I will ignore any flop movies they have given. I will ignore any wrongdoings they have done. Because if I accept that, then my belief is he's a good person. And if I say no, उसने लेकिन ये गलत काम भी किया है, तो it goes against my belief, which I don't like. Right? तो मेरा जो बिलीव बन गया ना, मैं उसको जो कंफर्म करेगा वही डेटा ढूंढूंगा. You see that's happening in the political parties. कोई भी पार्टी उठा लो, उस पार्टी का जो फॉलोअर है वो हमेशा अपनी पार्टी में जो अच्छा किया वो उठा उठा के वो ट्वीट पे आ रहा है, वो इंस्टाग्राम पे आ रहा है. तो तुमने उल्टे कारनामे किए पीछे, नो बडी टॉक्स अबाउट दैट. एंड अपोजिशन जो दूसरी पार्टी सामने है कोई भी हो, उसके सारे अच्छे काम इग्नोर किए जाते हैं और उसने जो गलत किया वही चुन चुन के उठा उठा के लाएगा. What are you doing? Because you believe that the other party is not good. So what you're doing, you're only looking for evidence to prove that the other party is not good. While there might be an ocean of evidence to prove that they are good also, you ignore that evidence and you capture only that evidence. So it's like, in a court of law, the way, if somebody is guilty and the opposition का जो lawyer होता है, right? If he wants to prove that this guy is a murderer, so he will only focus on the evidence that incriminates him. ऐसा कोई एविडेंस आ जाएगा ना जिससे वो बंदा बेकसूर साबित भी होता है, द प्रोसिक्यूटिंग लॉयर विल इग्नोर दैट. उसको पता है अगर मैं इसको फोकस किया तो बच जाएगा. बट मैंने तो मान लिया है ना कि मर्डर है, तो बेवकूफ को उसको सजा दिलानी है. दैट इज वाज कंफर्मेशन बायसेस. So second is the bandwagon effect. Bandwagon effect is our tendency to believe that if there are more people, if majority of the people are, large number of people are doing something, that must be right. The example here, right? A bus stop is on my left on the screen, right? And it's written bus there. But because 4 or 5 people gather at the other pole, everybody thinks that bus to here rukegi. So even if it's clearly written that bus is there, there's only one person standing. Everybody else is here to leave. Right? So we believe that it's not necessary. Just because a majority of people are doing something, just because a large number of people are doing something, does not make it right. Does not make that's the truth. Right? Same way, just because a majority of startups are launching a product, और इस सब हेल्थ में ना 10 startups already आ गया. I ask people, why are you doing? So there are 10 apps already coming up this market, but just because 10 people are launching a startup does not necessarily mean that there is a market. There could be 10 idiots also. Right? Just because 10 celebrities are endorsing a cosmetic brand does not mean that it's really good. As a critical thinker, I will evaluate. I will see the feature. I will talk on the facts. कि इससे फायदा होता है क्या, किसी ने ट्राई किया है क्या, have I tried it, have people who I trust tried it, not just because 10 celebrities are endorsing it. Very often we end up doing bandwagon, right? Class में जब mass bunk मारना होता है ये चीज होती है. There are 50% people, 60% people who want to bunk the class, and then the remaining also follow the bandwagon, right? So many times in our life we end up doing that. While following a leader, while following a celebrity, while following a company, while buying a product, while even operating within your friend circle in the classroom, while even supporting a teacher. Next time you try to do that, just think about it. That just because everybody is doing this doesn't make it right. Third is the authority bias. Now we have this tendency in our mindset that if some authority figure is saying something, तो ये सही होगा. इसीलिए देखो कोलगेट के एडवर्टाइजमेंट में आपको डॉक्टर दिखाया जाता है. Even if he's not a doctor, he's an actor, but उसको डॉक्टर का कोट वोट पहना के दिखाया जाता है, because when you see that she is a doctor है और डॉक्टर इफ saying कि ये दांतों के लिए अच्छा है तो अच्छा होगा ही. अगर वही बात अमिताभ बच्चन आके बोले तो हम इतना जल्दी नहीं मानेंगे, because ये तो एक्टर है, इसको समझता है दांतों के बारे में, और ये तो डेंटिस्ट है. But the point of the fact is that even that doctor in the Colgate card is not actually a real doctor. He is also an actor, right? And he's just portraying like a doctor. But still, we tend to believe, we are subconscious level, psychologically, we are more likely to believe. But it's not always the case. Right? Just because somebody is an authority figure does not mean what he's saying is always accurate. Sometimes that person may intentionally lie to you for his personal benefit. Sometimes he may not know it, but वो गलती से जैसे ओपिनियन दे देते हैं. कई बार होता है ना, बड़े-बड़े इकोनॉमिस्ट बोलते हैं, just because कोई दुनिया का सबसे बड़ा इकोनॉमिस्ट है वो प्रेडिक्ट कर रहा है कि अगले साल आपकी इकोनॉमी तबाह हो जाएगी. Does that make sense? True. Right? So always look at it from the critical thinker's perspective, not because just एक क्लास में अगर टीचर ने आके बोल दिया, फैकल्टी है, right? उसने बोल दिया कि no, E equals to MC square. Sorry, I won't believe it. I will actually go and study it. Find it out. It's okay. Everybody is saying that, then that's fine. Right? And there's something called halo effect. Halo effect, again, the celebrities and politicians use this to their benefit very much. Right? One characteristic, one good thing, one property, one trait, one good feature about something or some person is used to make a judgment about the entire person. Right? For example, if there is an actor, एक celebrity है, सारी चीजें गलत करता है, दारू भी पी रहा है, ड्रग्स भी कर रहा है, ये भी कर रहा है, वो भी कर रहा है, but at the end of the day he does charity. How do you present? अरे यार कितना अच्छा आदमी, कितनी चैरिटी करता है. So just because चैरिटी करता है, एक कैरेक्टरिस्टिक उसका अच्छा है, बाकी 10-50 just doing charity, what happens? His branding and PR team will portray him like that just because he's doing charity, such a good celebrity, right? Same happens in politics, same happens in businesses, right? वो business 50 there are business, I don't want to take name. पुणे के अंदर हमारे कैंसर रिसर्च हॉस्पिटल है, कैंसर हॉस्पिटल that is built by a company that sells गुटखा. How ironic. And then they want to protect a project, we are helping cancer patients, but dude, you are the people who actually relate to that cancer. You are products cause that. That's the halo effect. A lot of time, businesses, leaders, politicians, your bosses, right, celebrities, organizations will try to do that. Try to avoid falling into that trap also. And that's probably this we can skip. The last slide over here is, because we are Western movies and all. So if you really want to develop your critical thinking skills, there are these two movies, right? One is 12 Angry Men, and it's a Hollywood English movie, and on the right is Ek Ruka Hua Faisla. Both are one and the same. So Ek Ruka Hua Faisla actually is the Bollywood remake of 12 Angry Men. If you want to watch the original movie, watch that English wala. If you want those remake, but exactly the storyline and everything is 90% same. Watch the Ek Ruka Hua Faisla. But watch it, 2.5 hours ka movie hai, and it's about a boy who was on trial for the murder of his dad, and everybody, right, there were 12 people who were to vote on that, and out of 12, 11 people decided that the guy is, that the boy is guilty, usko murder ki saza milni chahiye. Only one person said we cannot decide, so but let us discuss. It was a critical thinker, and see, by the end, that one critical thinker converted everybody, and by the end all 12 people said no, he is not guilty, and सारे 11 को उसने convince कर दिया. Very interesting movie. So watch one of them, with that intent of learning more, help you a lot. And with that, this is the last part about session. So just contact details, if somebody wants, would be happy to connect. Be happy to receive any kind of feedback over email or WhatsApp, wherever you want to share. That exact, I think it's 4:48. So let's stop sharing here. Couple of minutes if there is any questions. Somebody is saying, Sushil is saying Virat is best. No, that's not a fact. That's the opinion. Okay. Go and tell that to Saurav Ganguly. Okay, so any questions, any queries, any doubts? Doubts, I don't think so, but see again, when I said doubts, so I don't think so, that's not a fact, that's an opinion. So next time you speak something, you say something, you write something, at least I have that habit. Is it a fact or is it opinion? और अगर opinion पे कोई लड़ाई कर रहा है तो okay, उसका right है. मेरा opinion मेरा है, उसका opinion उसका है. Fact पे जब मजा तब जब fact पे लड़ाई करे, तब हम बोलोगे नहीं ये fact है, उस पर लड़ाई नहीं कर सकती है तो ठीक है. Here's my temple, this is my temple. उस पर लड़ाई नहीं कर. तो वो चीज है. Okay, now that's a very dicey question. Interesting. Someone's asking about religious belief and superstition. So, religious belief can be there are two things. एक वो है जो आपके religious beliefs and system and actual में real है जो चले आ रहा है. And then there are so many other customs, traditions that we as human beings have started adding. वो पहले नहीं थे. हमने अपनी कन्वीनियंस के हिसाब से वो ऐड कर दिए. कई जगह पे हमने अपनी कन्वीनियंस के हिसाब से निकाल दिए और कई जगह पे हमने अपनी कन्वीनियंस के हिसाब से मॉडिफाई भी कर दिया. स्मार्ट. तो जहाँ पे रिलीजन में कुछ बोला गया था, राइट, सो वो था तो सी व्हेन अगेन वहाँ पे आप उस एंगल से देखो ना कि इफ समबडी फॉर एग्जांपल इन माय रिलीजन आई हैव टू प्रे 5 टाइम्स अ डे, 5 टाइम आपको नमाज पढ़नी है, तो दैट्स अ फैक्ट. अब देयर आर पीपल उसे 5 टाइम की क्या जरूरत है, आप एक ही बार पढ़ो या दिन नहीं पढ़ो तो फिर दिन पढ़ता हूँ, दैट्स नॉट अ फैक्ट, दैट्स ओपिनियन एवरीबॉडी इज एंटाइटल्ड टू देयर ओन. Fact is that 5 times is compulsory. You cannot change that. If somebody comes and tells me that 5 times is not compulsory, I'll have an argument. I will not believe, I agree to that because that's the fact. लिखा हुआ है. I might have opinion about it. Whether you want to do it or not, that's your opinion, right? So you have to look at from those perspectives. What I'm talking about, is it a fact or is it an opinion? Right? We talked about a lot of religious stories, mythologies, all religion they have it. And of course, now we tend to believe them as fact. That's fine. उसका जब interpretation कर लेते हैं ना, उसका interpretation करके we create a lot of things. That's all opinion based. So जितनी सारी लड़ाई चलती है यहाँ पे सब opinion based. Boil it down to facts. किसी साइड के लिए कोई आर्गुमेंट करने के लिए कुछ नहीं. Nobody can argue. Put facts with argument very simple. So fact क्या है? ये religion है, उसके ये rules है, ये principles है. This is what the religion allows you. This is what the religion does not allow. ये दूसरा religion है, ये उसके rules है, ये उसके regulations है, ये उसके principles है. This is what the religion allows you. This is what the religion does not allow. Those are the facts. Opinion क्या आ जाता है? Which one is better? The moment I say which one is better, I'm entering into the opinion zone. Usually, when you're comparing things, it's opinion. Comparing to human beings, you're comparing to leaders, you're comparing to Bollywood. See, there are two leaders. एक leader की अपनी achievement है, उसके अपने negative points है, उसने अपनी life में इतने अच्छे काम किए, इतने गलत काम किए, इतना correct किए. एक दूसरा leader है, उसने अपनी life में इतना अच्छा development किया, इतने अच्छे काम किए, इतने बुरे काम किए, इतने criminal cases उसके ऊपर. Opinion क्या है कि ये वाला better है, मेरा वाला leader better है, तेरा वाला खराब. वहाँ लड़ाई. I hope partially in some way I was able to answer that question. So अभी feedback form आया है, just last point on the feedback. A lot of things that you put on the feedback. Now, very interesting thing. When you feel feedback, and not for this feedback in general, the feedback form. The feedback form is supposed to gather facts. But the questions we frame, we usually gather opinions. I think sometimes we need to gather opinions also. But there's a difference. You know, if I ask somebody about a session, how was the session? Right? Somebody will say it was amazing, exciting. Somebody will say it was dull, boring. Same session. How can a same session be dull, boring, and amazing, exciting at the same time? Two different people, two different opinions. But if you had asked facts, was there anything learning, any new learning from the session? Right? Was the session matching the topic? No, those are facts. It's हाँ इतना percent ये था, इतना percent ये था. ये पढ़ाया, ये नहीं पढ़ाया. Fact. Again, long topic. Already 5 बज गया, so I think we'll conclude over here. वरना लोगों के अलग-अलग opinion जाएंगे, facts रह जाएंगे same. So with that, I think that's it all from my end, ma'am, and we can conclude the session.
Thank you, sir. Good evening, everyone. Myself, Sangeeta Nemade, feel privileged to extend my warm vote of thanks on the behalf of Government College of Engineering, Aurangabad, to all present over here for the session on design thinking and critical thinking under IIC. Initially, I would like to take this opportunity to record my heartfelt thanks to our respected principal, Dr. U.J. Kahalekar, sir, for giving us the permission to conduct such a session under IIC at Government College of Engineering, Aurangabad. We are grateful to have a resource person as Professor Mr. Ismail Akbani from SCIE Pune. I would like to express our sincere thanks to Professor Ismail Akbani sir for giving excellent coverage on design thinking and critical thinking. We are all inspired by your words, sir. I would like to express my gratitude to Dr. Varsha Ratnaparkhe Madam, President of IIC JICA, for providing the right logistic supports, guidance and encouragement to conduct such activity under IIC. I am very thankful and very grateful to thanks all teaching faculty members, our technical teams and especially volunteers for their continuous support in successful completion of this session. Finally, at the last but not the least, I'd like to thank all dear students for their presence and their cooperation. Here now, with the permission of DICE, I declare the session is over. But before leaving this session, please fill up the feedback form. The link is put it on the chat box. Please fill up this feedback form. Thank you all.